Committee, and we do have introduction of bills this morning. We will have about 5, but there may be others, and so we'll request at that time, we'll request for you to get back with us. First on the request, I have Senator Francisco. Senator Francisco, could you repeat the number of House members also? 120. 120? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I should have used the phone. This is RS 1015.
Okay. If there's no objections, seeing no objections, that bill will be introduced. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Senator Hulsler. Is she here? Yes, there she is.
Morning. Sorry about that. The first one regards law enforcement officers and use of excessive force. That is RS 1006. And the second one is in regard to statute of limitations in civil cases for sexually violent crimes against minors. That is RS 1031.
Thank you. Is there any objection to introducing these two bills? Seeing none, those bills are introduced. Thank you. Next, I have Senator Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee. I have 2 bills to introduce. First one is RS 1045. This is about third-party ballot solicitation. Basically, it sets out 3 different parameters for people who are sending these third-party ballot solicitations, provided that they not use a state logo or any similar seal, provide clear markings on those third-party ballots so that it's clear that it's not from the state, and also any envelope would have to have the return address of either the Secretary of State or the local election office. The other bill is RS 1145, and this just sets uniform rules and for setbacks for wind turbines. It also sets rules on aviation lighting and some of the noise thresholds. So those are the 2 bills.
Thank you very much. Committee, is there any objection to these 2 bills? Seeing none, those bills will be introduced. Thank you. Senator Faustigodo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm introducing a bill today for Senator Hulsher as well, RS 0448. Mr. Chairman, Connie, members, it's a revision to crimes of sexual battery concerning spousal removal.
Thank you very much. Is there any objection to this bill? The bill will be introduced. Thank you. And Mr. Duncan? Thank you very much. Is there any objection to this bill being introduced? Seeing none, bill will be introduced. Are there any other bill introductions? Seeing none, thank you very much. We'll move on to authorizing sports wagering under the Kansas Expanded Lottery Act, Senate Bill 84. And we have a staff briefing. Who will be giving it?
Thank you, Mr.
Jason.
Chairman. Members of the committee, Senate Bill 84 will look very familiar to some of you, as it is nearly identical to Senate Bill 283 that this committee heard and worked last session. But for those of you who are new to this committee and to the Senate, very briefly, all gambling in the state of Kansas has to be owned and operated by the state pursuant to the Constitution. And the statutory scheme for that is set up so that the Kansas Lottery is the state agency with ownership and control over all gambling in the state of Kansas. And so Senate Bill 84 would put sports wagering, or sports books as they're commonly known, within the Kansas Expanded Lottery Act. And the Kansas Expanded Lottery Act is the act that was passed back in 2007 to authorize the state to enter into management contracts with casino managers for the 4 state-owned casinos that are in the state. So Senate Bill 84 would essentially piggyback off of that act by authorizing the state to amend those management contracts to include provisions to allow the casino managers to conduct sports wagering at their facilities and through what are called in the bill interactive sports wagering platforms, which are basically your applications to do online sports wagering, either at your computer or through a mobile app. Would give you the ability to place bets on sporting events. If after 2 years, so by July of 2020, there is only one casino manager who is contracted to do sports wagering, or there are no casino managers conducting sports wagering, then the Kansas Lottery would be authorized to go ahead and conduct sports wagering on its own through its own interactive platform and carry out that way. But if there are 2 or more casino managers involved, then it would be exclusively through the casino management contracts under Senate Bill 84. Sections 1 through 10 of the bill are new sections to be added to the Expanded Lottery Act to provide some regulations and parameters around sports wagering in Kansas. Includes limiting wagering to only individuals who are 21 or older, and allowing individuals to place themselves on a self-exclusion list so that they would be prohibited from placing bets by the casino manager. These sections, section 3 talks about approval of the interactive platforms, these applications, online applications. Each manager could select and use up to 3 different platforms for doing its online sports wagering. Those would have to be approved by the Kansas Lottery. Section 4 authorizes Kansas Racing and Gaming Commission, which is generally a rule and regulatory body for racing and gaming in Kansas. Section 4 authorizes that body to adopt rules and regulations regarding sports wagering advertising. Section 5 authorizes the Kansas Lottery to restrict or exclude wagers on certain sporting events by providing notice to the casino managers. Section 6 provides some general requirements for casino managers in conducting sports wagering, such as restricting certain individuals from placing wagers, maintaining security of the data, and cooperating with investigations by the lottery, the Racing and Gaming Commission, or law enforcement agencies. Section 7 requires the casino managers to maintain records of certain individuals who make sports wagers totaling $10,000 within a 24-hour period. That basically triggers the requirement that they maintain records on that individual as provided in that section 7 of the bill. and they make those available for inspection by the Lottery or the Racing and Gaming Commission if there's a question regarding that individual's activities. Section 8 creates a cause of action for the state against any person who knowingly engages in, facilitates, or conceals conduct that's intended to improperly influence the outcome of a sporting event. Section 9 establishes the Sports Wagering Receipts Fund and the procedure for the revenues from sports wagering to be deposited in the state treasury. And then there's a procedure for the executive director to certify the amounts to be transferred into the lottery operating fund, which is the portion that the state's going to retain from those revenues, and then the amounts to be deposited into each casino manager's account in that receipts fund, which is the remainder of those revenues going back to the casino manager. It also contains a provision to allow each casino manager to carry forward a negative sports wagering revenue amount for a return period. This would occur if the sports wagering manager had to pay out more than it took in any time period. And so it had an actual negative revenue amount that it was reporting. The bill would allow it to carry that forward into the next return period and apply that to any positive revenue amount in the next reporting period. But it can only be carried forward. It cannot be applied backwards to any prior reporting period. Section 10 of the bill establishes a white-collar crime fund. This fund would be used by the Attorney General and the Racing and Gaming Commission to investigate and prosecute white-collar crime involving illegal sports wagering activity. The fund would be funded each year with the first $750,000 in sports wagering revenues retained by the state. And then the Attorney General and the Racing and Gaming Commission would go to the governor each year and submit a budget request for a portion of that amount necessary to carry out the purposes of Section 10. Sections 11, 13, 14, and 15 make changes to the Kansas Criminal Code with respect to sports wagering. This includes creating a new crime of misuse of non-public sports information, which makes it a crime to basically place a bet for financial gain when the bet is on the basis of material non-public sports information that the individual has obtained. That would be a level 5 non-person felony. These provisions exclude sports wagering as authorized by the Act from the criminal definition of bet, which takes it out of most of the criminal betting provisions. And then Senate Bill 84 also increases the severity level for the crimes of sports bribery and tampering with a sports contest. Those are increased from a level 9 to a level 8 non-person felony. Sections 12 and 16 of the bill would require the governor or the governor's representative to negotiate in good faith with any federally recognized Indian tribe that requests to renegotiate a gaming compact to include sports wagering. Section 17 amends 74-A702. This is a statute with all the definitions for the Kansas Lottery and the Expanded Lottery Act. It adds definitions for interactive sports wagering platform, match fixing, sporting events, sports wagering revenues, all those new terms that are key to the provisions in sections 1 through 10. I will note sporting event includes motor races and horse races, but excludes greyhound races and any event involving high schoolers, so persons under 18, unless the majority of the participants are at least 18 or older. So no betting on minor sporting events. It also excludes parimutuel wagering and fantasy sports leagues from the definition of sports wagering. And then it modifies the definition of lottery facility games. Instead of referring to tribal games under current law, the definition would refer to those games allowed by a licensed gaming facility in the United States. Section 18 directs the Lottery Commission to adopt rules and regulations for sports wagering and also prohibits certain types of online lottery games. And those restrictions are also repeated in Section 21 in a statute that defines what is unlawful in terms of lottery games. Then Section 23 is a key piece of the Senate Bill 84. It amends the statute that governs the casino management contracts. It amends subsections I and O of that statute to allow for those contracts to include provisions to conduct sports wagering. Under that, the state would retain 7.5% of the sports wagering revenues that are placed in person at a casino and 10% of the revenues that are placed through an online platform. Section 24 amends a statute in the Expanded Lottery Act that requires Racing and Gaming Commission to conduct background checks and issue certifications as to the fitness of management and employees of organizations who are involved in the management of the state-owned and operated casinos. The amendments will add provisions for individuals involved in managing sports wagering and provide specific direction for suspension, revocation, and non-renewal of those certifications if the individual engages in certain conduct. Section 27 amends a statute that prohibits certain individuals from placing wagers with racetrack or lottery gaming facilities in the state. The list currently includes the immediate family members of officers, employees of a facility manager, and vendors who are contracting to supply gaming equipment. Senate Bill 84 would remove those individuals from the prohibition list. Section 28 prohibits certain individuals from placing sports wagering. These are same type of individuals who are prohibited currently from gambling at a casino, but then it would also add individuals connected with a sports team, including the owners and employees, and player and referee unions. And then finally, Section 30 of the bill would increase the annual transfer to the Problem Gambling and Addictions Grant Fund from $80,000 to $100,000. The bill would go into effect on July 1st of this year if enacted. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Jason. Are there any questions from committee? Yes, Senator Pasquito.
I'm special, Mr. Chairman. I had two microphones to use. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Jason Long, for the thorough presentation. This legislation has come a long way. A lot of the things that we had concerns about, you've addressed them. One of them was regarding greyhounds racing. Would that be throughout the state of Kansas? Or I know there was a lot of talk about the Greyhound Park located in the Wichita area. So if you could speak to that, and then again, if you would just clarify some of the sporting events that bets or sporting wagering couldn't be applied to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Senator Pasquito. Greyhound racing, live greyhound racing is not conducted in Kansas currently. There are no licensed racing facilities under the Parimutuel Racing Act. The bill only addresses greyhound racing and that it doesn't include it in the definition of a sporting event. And so you couldn't go to a state-owned casino and place a sports bet on a greyhound race because that wouldn't be part of the definitions under this bill. You would have to go to a licensed racing facility under the Parimutuel Wagering Act and place your bet that way through a parimutuel licensee. But the sporting events that would be included would be any professional or collegiate sporting event, So potentially KU basketball games, Chiefs football games would be included. Motor races. So when NASCAR comes to Kansas Speedway, you could potentially bet on that. And it's not limited to events just in Kansas. Obviously, you can also bet on sporting events that are conducted around the country or even internationally under Senate Bill 84.
Thank you, Jason. I got a question on the Greyhound racing. Since it's not licensed in Kansas, could they bet on a Greyhound race, say in New Jersey?
I don't think so, because the exclusion is wagers that would be placed pursuant to the Pari-Mutuel Wagering Act that we have in Kansas, and that act governs simulcast races, which is what you're talking about when you place a bet on a race that's being conducted at another racetrack. That's a simulcast, and that's governed under the Pari-Mutuel Racing Act. And I think this definition would exclude those types of bets as well.
Thank you. And one other question. On section 17, it says any event involving high schoolers unless the majority of the participants are at least 18. Majority, is that a simple majority?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Yes, Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jason, on the problem gaming fund, the amount of $100,000, is that a certain percentage of what is expected to be taken in? Or is that just a fixed amount one time?
No, that is an annual transfer from the State Gaming Revenues Fund. And so the State Gaming Revenues Fund is a fund where most of the state's gaming revenues get deposited. A portion of the lottery operating funds, I believe, go there. But out of that fund, then there's an annual transfer to the Problem Gambling and Addictions Grant Fund, and that transfer is being increased by $20,000. It's an annual fixed amount that gets transferred each year.
Thank you. And if I may have a follow-up?
Yes, sir.
On the local mom and pops that are currently regulated, like my Oak Lawn Community Center does a little bingo game through the Department of Revenue, would they now be underneath the Lottery Commission?
No, that is under the Charitable Gaming Act, which is a separate act that's under the purview of the Department of Revenue. Those are considered charitable games such as bingo and raffles that are authorized by separate provisions of the Kansas Constitution.
Thank you, Jason.
Senator Peterson, is that, you have a follow-up? No. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I see no other questions. We'll move to our proponents. And the first proponent would be Mr. Jeff Morris, Vice President, Public Affairs of Government Relations, Penn National Gaming, on behalf of Hollywood Casino and Raceway. Mr. Morris?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you, and good morning to you and members of the committee. My name is Jeff Morris, and I'm the Vice President of Public Affairs and Government Relations for Penn National Gaming. While I would prefer to testify in person today to discuss the benefits of sports betting, I am mindful of the COVID-19 positivity rate in Kansas and across the country, and felt the responsible choice was to attend via camera. As you may know, Penn National Gaming is the nation's largest regional gaming operator with 41 casinos and racetracks throughout the United States. In Kansas, we are proud to operate Hollywood Casino at Kansas Speedway. Since opening in 2012, we have paid over $465 million in taxes and fees to state and local government and provided over $11 million in charitable contributions. We have retail sports books at nearly half of our casinos and racino properties nationwide, and we currently offer online wagering on sports in 2 states, Pennsylvania and Michigan. We anticipate we'll be operational with our mobile sportsbook app in at least 10 states by the end of this year. Roughly a year ago, Penn National acquired a 36% stake in Barstool Sports, which is a leading digital sports, entertainment, and media platform that delivers original content across blogs, podcasts, radio, video, and other social channels. They have a base of approximately 54 million monthly unique visitors, or to put it in their founder Dave Portnoy's vernacular, an army of loyal stoolies. The partnership has led to the rebranding of our Hollywood Casino retail sportsbooks to Barstool Sportsbooks. And as I referenced earlier, we launched our Barstool Sportsbook mobile app in Pennsylvania and Michigan to great success. Last session, I testified in support of SB 283, and I'm here again today to respectfully provide testimony in support of the principles included in SB 84. If successful, Kansas would join 25 other states and Washington, D.C. that have moved to authorize sports betting in the wake of the U.S. Supreme Court decision striking down the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act, or PASPA, in 2018. The repeal of PASPA and the subsequent passage of sports betting legislation around the country could not have come at a better time for the gaming industry. Regional casinos have been continuing to face increased competition and cannibalization from endless gaming expansion and a rampant proliferation of illegal slot machines, both within our states and across the border in neighboring jurisdictions. And that was before the pandemic hit, which closed our casinos for months and continues to greatly restrict our operations, with 50% capacity limits in food and beverage service ending at midnight at Hollywood Casino. Yet despite the endless trials and tribulations we, and most of the business owners across the country, have faced, we use this unprecedented time as an opportunity to completely reevaluate and reimagine our operating model and product offerings, and to supercharge the digital transformation of our company. An example is the implementation of a new generation of cashless, cardless, and contactless technology at our casinos that will improve efficiency and guest service, while also attracting a newer, younger demographic who are accustomed to using an app on their phone to pay for everything and earn rewards. Starbucks had a 10+ year head start on our industry in this regard. Retail, and especially mobile sports wagering, fits in the sweet spot of this movement towards technology and new product offerings that attract a younger demographic. And by that, I mean the 25 to 40-year-old age group. In fact, the average age of our Barstool Sportsbook customer is 29, whereas the average age of our slot customer is north of 55 years old. And notably, roughly 70% of all bets in those markets that allow retail and mobile sports betting are made online or through an app. To not allow mobile wagering would severely restrict the revenue potential in the state. On the subject of what an appropriate tax rate would be for sports betting, I want to emphasize that sports betting is a low margin, highly volatile business. On an average $100 wager or handle, $95 goes back to the bettors, with a casino receiving $5 or the hold. We must then pay a federal excise tax, state tax, and an array of operating expenses: betting data, data analytics, labor, actual revenue. We think a 7.5% tax rate for wagers made in a lottery gaming facility and 10% for all sports wagering revenues placed through a mobile app strikes the right balance and allows us to be more competitive with neighboring states who have sports betting. Iowa, for example, has a tax rate of 6.75%, and Colorado's is at 10%. We have found in states where we are currently operating sports betting that it has become an effective customer acquisition tool. Since launching our Barstool Sportsbook app in Pennsylvania last September, we have registered over 72,000 customers in the state, the vast majority of whom were either brand new customers or who had been inactive in our database. As for the notion that sportsbooks will cannibalize our existing casinos and traditional gaming revenues, the reality is quite the opposite. In Indiana, for example, we've seen an incremental boost of nearly 27% to our table games and slot volumes in the areas adjacent to our retail sportsbook at our property in East Chicago, which obviously strengthens the overall gaming tax revenue for the state. We also believe it is critical that the operation of retail and mobile sports betting be limited to existing licensed gaming operators who have invested billions in economic development in Kansas and our designated skin partners. By way of background, a skin is an online sportsbook license that is typically tethered to a casino or racing license. And while the number of skins permitted varies by state, New Jersey, Iowa, Indiana, and West Virginia allow at least 3 skins per licensee, ensuring a competitive market. Allowing 3 skins per license in Kansas would mean more upfront license fees and revenues to the state. Notably, New Jersey and Indiana, even when adjusting for population, are the leading revenue-producing states. Importantly, Kansas's gaming industry, along with its skin partners, have in place well-established, rigorous compliance and responsible gaming protocols in place to ensure a safe wagering environment for consumers. For example, in addition to comprehensive and stringent state gaming regulations, as licensed casino and racino operators, we are required to undergo extensive federal anti-money laundering training programs. Since 1985, commercial casinos have been defined as financial institutions under the Bank Secrecy Act. As such, we have in place sophisticated customer verification procedures, which includes reporting suspicious transactions while further regulating, supervising, and monitoring anti-money laundering operations. Operating such a complex security system is expensive and extremely labor-intensive. We spend millions of dollars annually on surveillance equipment, surveillance personnel, and security officers at each of our properties to maintain a safe and secure environment for our customers. In closing, I'd like to take the opportunity to update you on the latest information on the debate about whether to include official league data in legislation. Although that language is not included in SB 84, we are aware the leagues continue to press for inclusion, including in a House bill recently introduced. Most, if not all, of the professional sports leagues have sold their data to the major suppliers like Sportradar and BetGenius, whom the operators are compensating for the data feeds they provide our sports books. In addition, many gaming operators, including Penn National, have signed commercial deals with the leagues for specialized proprietary in-game data, such as how fast a puck is traveling or who had the hardest slap shot, to grow interest in sports wagering. This proves that these deals can be reached privately and should not be legislatively mandated in what third parties declare to be commercially reasonable terms. What may be commercially reasonable to the leagues, who face no competition, may be inconsistent with the thin margin reality of sportsbook operators in a hyper-competitive environment. I want to thank you for your time this morning and look forward to working with you on sports betting legislation that is balanced by a strong regulatory structure and principled policy. With that, I'd be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Committee, do we have any questions? Seeing no questions, thank you very much.
Thank you.
In the light of transparency, I want to make everyone known that Senator Masterson is attending this session virtually. Going on, committee, in your packets, you'll see written support by 5 different people, and please review those. Are there any other questions? Tomorrow we will hear from the opponents and a neutral testimony. So if there's nothing further, we will close the hearing. Thank you very much.